Hello, hello. It is Astro Coach Sarah here for your Pisces lunar eclipse update. I also have a special segment after the lunar eclipse chart. So if you want to stay tuned for possibly the most controversial topic I've ever talked about, stay tuned for that. Okay. So we're halfway through as I'm recording this. It's the what 20th, I think. So we're like halfway through this eclipse portal because the first eclipse, which was the solar eclipse in Leo, was on August 12th. And then we have this Pisces lunar eclipse. This is the last Pisces lunar eclipse on the 27th, 8th. I think it's the 7th. Um, and so I don't know about y'all, but the last week of time has been eventful, in good ways and in bad ways. I know some friends of mine have lost loved ones, um, and I have been having some pretty decent life updates that nobody knows about yet. Um, but some really good things that are happening for me that seemingly were magic is the only way I can describe it. It was magic. Um, anyway, so I might be sharing that soon. We'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. But anyway, things are good. It was just kind of a like, holy crap. So if you're having a lot of holy crap moments, remember that we had that solar eclipse on the 12th. And there was some kind of release, and maybe you were able to release a state of being, a state of mind, a mindset. Maybe you were able to release like some old part of you because this eclipse season, I feel like, um, has been a like it's interesting because we had the Aquarius solar eclipse back in February with the nodes still in Pisces, Virgo. And now this eclipse season, the nodes have shifted into North Node Aquarius, South Node Leo, but we're still not done with the Pisces Virgo axis. And so we kind of have to have this conversation about the difference between Pisces and Aquarius, where this North Node is at. Pisces is ethereal. It's floaty. It's creative, yes. It's spiritual. It rules the feet. Um, and so there can be a lot of, and while we had the North Node in Pisces, there was like Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces. So there was a lot of delusion. There was a lot of masking. There was a lot of things could easily be washed away, by the ocean because that's what Pisces rules, right? Aquarius, so Pisces is a water sign, Aquarius is an air sign. And Aquarius is wisdom, it's intellectual, it's things that affect all of us, it's things that affect the community. Therefore, things that affect your community may not affect my community, right? And case in point, there was an incident at the Louisiana Center for the Blind where a woman was struck by a train. I believe she is recovering from her injuries. But as I'm sure you can imagine, I have thoughts on that. By the way, crossing railroad tracks as a blind person is difficult. They are very disorienting. However, there's a big however to that because I went to a blind school as a kid and we had railroad tracks on both sides of our campus. And I actually asked somebody else who's older than me if there was ever any reported incidents of, blind students getting hit by a train or having an accident there. And she said, no, there was a close call once, but somebody saw it and was able to get the student out of harm's way. Um, and so apparently this is like the second time this has happened near the Louisiana Center for the Blind. Now, I don't know what the railroad track situation is. Some railroad track crossings are more difficult than others. But I can tell you as somebody who's even legally blind that crossing railroad tracks is a pain in the ass. They're very disorienting because there's nothing to really orient to, because it's basically just pavement, tracks, pavement. I'm not saying they're impossible because I cross railroad tracks all the time. But I will say that there are times when I have to stop and think about it for a second before I get across the tracks. Now, I also used to live in Chicago with the metro tracks, and there was multiple tracks and express trains and all of that. So I think railroad tracks is just kind of a part of life. Anywho, but this North Node Aquarius is things that affect all of us in some way, right? Pisces was about medications, mind-altering medications, liquid medications, things like that. Aquarius is more about technology and artificial intelligence and things like that. Not really, if there is something to do with health, Aquarius wants it to be innovative and different and more suitable to more people than just, a select few, right? Now let's go to that South Node Virgo that changed to now South Node Leo. South Node Virgo, lots of job loss, changes in routines, changes in digestion. That's when we really saw the rise of GLP-1s and other types of, weight loss and or appetite altering, I'll say, things being used and whatnot. Now we're in South Node Leo, which is you thought you were a rock star, you thought you were like the, king or queen. Maybe, you kind of lose a little bit of your spark with the South Node in Leo, or some part of you has to be in check, right? With South Node Leo, right? So, it's yes, you can keep your head in the game, but you have to release some part of you in order to move on to this next level. So as we had that South Node, that solar eclipse in Leo, you may have felt a release around that. And now we have this Pisces lunar eclipse, which will be a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. This is the last one for this cycle. We won't have another one for 9 years or so. But we're not done with the Pisces Virgo eclipses. We have yet another Virgo lunar eclipse coming up in early 2027. We are not done with this axis. And there is something about that that's got my head a little on we went from things that were sort of softened or quieted to now Aquarius Leo, things are getting louder. Things are bigger issues, public issues, like I said, community issues, and things like that. Now, to fully exasperate the upcoming Pisces lunar eclipse, we have a Mercury cazimi in Virgo. Remember that Mercury retrograde we had in Cancer in July, and everybody was emotional and crying over everything. Now we have the superior Mercury cazimi ahead of the lunar eclipse in Virgo, which Virgo's Earth, at least. I wouldn't call Virgo grounded, but at least it's an Earth sign. And this could be like you now understand why you needed to release those emotions, right? You get that clarity around like why you needed to cry over the scene clips that from the show that you've seen like 900 times, and today this time it made you bawl your eyes out. You may understand why we had that. Now, Mars is still in Cancer. So we may still be experiencing some emotional things, especially around maternal issues. Again, stay tuned, controversial segment at the end of this. So as we have this eclipse coming up on the 27th in Pisces, full moon, this eclipse is going to square Uranus. Think back to June. I believe it was sometime around the 9th, 10th, 11th, somewhere in that ballpark was when I think it was a good chunk of the month of June, however, that Uranus squared the nodes when they were in Pisces Virgo. The nodes have shifted into Aquarius Leo, but this lunar eclipse at 4 degrees of Pisces is going to, so that means the sun and the moon are going to square those nodes. So something may have surfaced for you in June, and this may bring, with the combination of the lunar eclipse, moon and sun squaring Uranus, along with a Mercury cazimi, there could be a lot of freaking clarity around this lunar eclipse. There could be a lot of aha. Oh, that's what that was about. There could be a lot of understanding. Um, there could be something new open up. No, this is not a new moon, but if you did the work around the solar eclipse in Leo, something could open up and become available, an opportunity. Because maybe something had to go in June for there to be something show up here in late August. Astrology never works in a one-time transit vacuum. We can have, you know, a planet move through a spot like the eclipse that we just had in Leo at 20 degrees of Leo. We're going to have a lot of activity over the next year or so on that 20 degrees of Leo. So there's like a hella fight going outside in the parking lot. Yay. Um, don't worry, I'm safe. Way above ground. Um, but I can hear them. But that 20-degree Leo point, you're going to want to pay attention to what happened around the 11th, 12th, 13th of August, because that degree point is going to be hit again with Jupiter, with Mars, and there's going to be retrogrades and the nodes are going to move there and all of the things. So we're going to have, there's some dates that'll come up eventually. We'll get to those. They're not until later this year, like November, and then well into 2027. But I just want to give you a heads up that like this is what I'm saying about this lunar eclipse in Pisces that's squaring Uranus. It's almost like something had to happen in June with the nodes squaring Uranus for now this eclipse to come in and kind of be um, maybe the final act, maybe, but more could be that you now understand the culmination of June and July, where we had the Uranus squaring the nodes and then that Mercury retrograde. And now we're going to have the Mercury cazimi with the full moon lunar eclipse squaring the Uranus. So do you see what I'm saying here? There's a lot of pieces that may feel like they're like all over the place. I'm like wiggling my fingers like puzzle pieces floating through the air that now may come and culminate together. And you're going to be like, okay, now I fucking get it. Right. Um, and so things might just land perfectly into place like a puzzle piece. So anyway, let's take a look at that chart. We'll draw some oracle cards. I don't have tarot today. I really am getting to the point where I'm disinterested in tarot because I'm not good at reading it. It takes a lot of effort. And frankly, I have things opening up and opportunities happening that I don't have time to study tarot and give it the attention and the love that it deserves. And so yeah, that's why I kind of keep, not doing tarot. But anyway, let's look at we're going to look at the Mercury Cazimi chart, and then we'll look at the um, lunar eclipse chart, and then we'll do the extra thing. So give me one sec. All righty. So we got the Mercury cazimi. You can see it up here on the top of the chart. Mercury's conjunct the sun at 4 degrees. 4 degrees and 27 minutes. So if you have points in your chart, planets or points in the early degrees of Virgo, or even the mutable signs in general, you may be feeling like you may already be feeling it with Uranus having been there, but Uranus is at 5 degrees now, and won't station retrograde for another couple of weeks yet. But if you do have planets or points in those early degrees of the mutable signs, like you're probably going to feel next week pretty intense. And it really could be a good thing. Like you could feel like maybe you get the job that you've been waiting for, or your routine evens out, or something to that effect. It also could be something health related that goes really well. I feel like this could be like epiphany moments. That kind of thing, because we do have, this square over to Uranus in Gemini, and Gemini and Virgo. They kind of speak differently, but they're both they're both Mercury signs. So, this really could be a good thing. That moon is finishing up in Aquarius right on the North Node. at the time of the cazimi. Yeah, right on it, 29 degrees. Goodness. So I- this could be really powerful. Um, really, really powerful. This is actually a really nice chart. Um, I do have Mars in Cancer. Not my favorite, but I don't think it's anybody's favorite. It's at 10 degrees. Um, so starting to square Saturn. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in the eclipse chart. But Mars starting to square Saturn. So Mars, Saturn, the two malefics in astrology, not always the easiest transits, but it kind of looks like we're a little bit away from it, perfecting at this point. But Mars, and they're both in like not happy places because Mars is in Cancer where he's not happy and Saturn's in Aries. There's a lot about, with the Saturn retrograde in Aries, and the South Node in Leo too, there is a lot about the current astrology that has a lot to do with you really having self-confidence and trusting your individuality and trusting that you have the resources, even if you don't feel like it. Chiron's also still in Taurus. I think he's there for another, I don't know, month, I want to say, maybe a little less than that. Because he's currently retrograde and he is going to retrograde back into Aries. But I feel like there's a lot of just in general, because again, this eclipse is happening with Mars in an unhappy place. Saturn, of course, is going to be in an unhappy place for the next like 2.5 years. And so they're neither one like giving us momentum. But I feel like if align with epiphanies, how your gut feels, we're in Virgo season, so it's really important to pay attention to your gut, um, your solar plexus, and how your brain functions. Because that gut brain relationship, your nervous system. So this could make people very nervous. There could be like some upset tummy type stuff, could be some anxiety type stuff with this cazimi. But I do feel like um, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of things. I feel like there could be things that could just, you have to take action on them and you've got to be okay with however it goes, even if it's messy. And Virgo does not like messy, but you know, we don't have like the Mars, and this could be good for some people who don't like all of the fire and air that's going on, that we don't have the whole haul ass momentum energy. Maybe this is good for some people. Um, but I would say like especially during and around the 20, or we'll say this is on Thursday, the 27th. I would say probably Monday to like this whole week, honestly, because you're gonna have Mercury cross the North Node before it gets into Virgo, um, or the South Node rather, in Leo before it gets to Virgo. So I feel like, you know, just keep an eye on your nervous system, keep an eye on your body and your symptoms. Virgo and Pisces really are body connected things, but then you add Uranus in Gemini, lightning bolting your nervous system, plus the North Node in Aquarius and Pluto in Aquarius, a lot of nervous system activity is possible. And it's really important to pay attention to how your body is digesting and processing things. So, paying attention to how you are burping, like moving nutrients through, having bowel movements, what you're digesting, how you're digesting it, just really being attentive to your nutrition, which has been a hot button topic since we had that whole like um explosive diarrhea situation. Has that been resolved? I don't even know. I had some greens the other day. I'm fine. Um, Anyway, so I don't get too worried about shit like that. Um, but anyway, okay, so I'm gonna pause my recording for 1 second. Okay, I had to scroll through my photos because I already did this chart for the Awakening Spirit Collective. So I had to scroll through my photos and find it. Okay, so this is the lunar eclipse chart. You can see down here at the bottom that Mercury is now a degree past the sun. And so that has moved on. And then we still have Jupiter at 12, the North Node at 29 Leo. Um, and then if we move up here, we have the sea is the midheaven of this chart. Pluto in Aquarius, of course, North Node in Aquarius, the moon in Pisces. And then we have a lot of retrogrades happening. You may notice that. A lot of retrogrades happening. This is a Gemini ascendant chart too. Of course, this is happening at 11:19 p.m. Central Time on the 27th, which is a Thursday. That, of course, is Central Time, so adjust for your time zone. But this is a Gemini ascendant chart. Um, well, kind of. Maybe it's a Taurus. If it's Gemini ascending, it's barely. Anyway, oh well, I guess the AS is actually in Gemini. I must be having this on whole sign houses. Um. Anywho's it's okay. Mars at 10. Like I said, he's about to square Saturn. So let's look at this lunar eclipse. Man, I'm actually a really good artist, just not at drawing. I'm a good crocheter. I'm good with yarn and other like ropes and stuff, like macrame and stuff like that. Anyway, okay, so here's the T-square. Here's the T-square between the moon, the sun, and Uranus. I talked about this. We had those nodes. You can see the nodes right next to the moon and the sun. The north node is a right side up headphones, and the south node is a upside down headphones. Um, glyph. Um, and remember that this is sort of a repeat or a repeat, not a repeat, but like a rhythm or a rhyme from something that may have came up in June. So something's mimicking what happened in June. Um, Potentially, maybe not necessarily. And depending on if you do have mutable placements, meaning if you have something, between the first, I would say 5 degrees of Virgo, first 5 degrees of Pisces, first 5 degrees of Sag, first 5 degrees of Gemini, definitely going to affect you more. And doesn't mean that it won't affect you in other ways if you don't have those placements, but it could, be more of a thing for you if you have, especially if you have things like, let's just say the last couple of degrees even of the fixed signs. Something that I have noticed since that lunar eclipse in Leo, I think it was like right before the eclipse. It was right after the full moon in Aquarius on July 27th, and then right before the solar eclipse in Leo. But man, Scorpios were going through it. Every single person that I knew who had a Scorpio sun, a Scorpio rising, um, everyone was just wowza. And it wasn't like we felt like we were derailing. It was more like, what the fuck is going on and how the fuck do we do life right now? So I don't know I mean, remember that this nodal North Node Aquarius, South Node Leo is a square to the North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio, um, that we had a few years ago, would have been in like 2023. I know I'm trying to fix it. There we go. Um, I have this thing set to timeout. So, anywho, but it just seemed to hit people like extra who had Scorpio placements. I probably talked to like 3 people, and then I saw various other like videos on Instagram or whatever of people who were like, is Scorpio risings, are we okay right now? And the answer was no, none of us were okay. And I hate to tell Scorpios this, but Scorpios, we're not done. So what's happening is that we have Jupiter in Leo. We have Pluto in Aquarius, and now we have those nodes in Aquarius, Leo. They're squaring Scorpio. So anything in Scorpio right now, it's like what, 3 degrees, 12 degrees, and 29 degrees of Scorpio, but soon it will be various other degrees. And I then had the audacity to remind everyone that even after the eclipses are done and da 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 da, we have Venus going retrograde in Scorpio, and then we have a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. I know everyone was just thrilled that I jumped into the conversation. Um, Speaking of Venus, she is in Libra right now. So conversations could be going really well. I think I forgot to point that out. Venus is like the only one over there right now. Anywho, so just think about that. And then we also have like conversations happening. Like I pointed out, Mars is pretty close to squaring Saturn. And so kind of like I said, like Mars isn't in his favorite place in Cancer, and Saturn's not in his favorite place in Aries. So neither one of them is actually very strong in these spots. So there may not be a lot of momentum to really catch off of this. In fact, it could be more of something more emotional that kind of maybe gets you into action about something, like you're powered by your emotions. Um, and of course, Chiron in Taurus is in a trine. Let me change my color so I can try and see that a little bit better. Um, Chiron in Taurus is in a trine to this lunar eclipse and a sextile to the moon itself. Um, so we do have that going on. I was trying to see. Venus is at 20. There's nothing there. There is that Mars Venus square though that's been going on for a long time. I mean, it's separating, um but yeah, like there's a lot happening in this chart, really. I mean, a lot of things kind of building, a lot of things kind of separating. It could be very woozy, but I think that it's going to be a lot of like epiphany type things. Um, as we kind of just see what the eclipse brings. I don't know. The Leo eclipse kind of sent me for a wild ride. So, like that I didn't expect, and it was kind of a good thing. I mean, good things are happening. So, all of that. But um, I do think with Mars in Cancer, with Saturn in Aries, um, there's a lot of energy happening, and a lot of it feels like the more work that you do to release the old, like the more you do to like release the old ways of being and to like surrender into whatever is coming and new for you, like I feel like that's gonna really make a difference into how you move through this energy. I felt like that's what I felt like a lot of Scorpios were doing. We were all kind of just like, I surrender. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm supposed to think. Because you got to realize if you're a Scorpio person right now, or even a Taurus, but like Scorpio for sure, because Scorpio, there's nothing in Scorpio right now. But we have all, and then everything that has moved through Cancer has been trining us. You have to also think that everything moving through Gemini and Aries is creating what's called an in conjunction, which is a very uncomfortable transit. And then we have things squaring and things opposing. I don't know, Scorpio's just, I actually heard another astrologer even say like the hardest sign right now to work with is Scorpio. So if you've got Scorpio stuff and you're going through it right now, you're not alone. We're all in this together. So anyway, but as far as like what I feel like for this, there could still be some very bombshell pieces of information that come out. And I'm going to get into some of that in this next part, that I'm going to kind of tie these two eclipses together with kind of a couple of current events that I think are really important to the current astrology. And I'm going to do that after I do the cards so that if people want to bug out, they have that option if they don't care about current stuff. But there's some things that I feel I need to talk about. I'm going to do that. Okay, we got the Woodland Wardens because there's not a lot of Earth. Yes, it's Virgo, but to me, Virgo is not like the steadiest Earth sign. It's fine though. I'm learning to embrace the Virgo of my own birth chart. Um, all right, what have we got? Oops, right side up the first time. We have the otter and cattail, and the term on there is peace. So the otter and the cattail, and the term on there is peace. That's really interesting. Because I often hear people say that they want peace in their life, and yet they're the ones stirring the drama cauldron. So I'm just saying, it's my experience of humans. Um, I am somebody who does like peace and quiet. I am somebody who does enjoy just sitting around reading a book and working on some crochet or, just whatever, working on some projects. I do like peace and quiet. I think that right now the world is so loud with all of the fire and air energy that, like, if you can have peace in your relationship, we talk about Venus and Libra, peace in your relationship. If your relationship is fighting, good luck getting through this Venus retrograde. It's going to square Pluto and it is going to hurt. And that Venus retrograde starts in October, early October, but the Venus pre-retrograde pre-shadow is going to start here at the end of August, um, early September. So if you're somebody who is in a relationship that is not peaceful, that is not satisfactory, that's not fulfilling, good luck getting through this Venus retrograde. And yes, I have seen clients break up with their partner during Venus retrogrades, and they're like, shit, because they're astrologers and they should have known. All right, we'll get another card to go along with that. All right, we got the snail and huckleberry. And this is trust in the invisible. Yep, Pisces. Lunar eclipse in Pisces. You may not see it, but you got to trust in what your actions, what I'm gonna put it to you this way. For people who do not believe in law, like law of attraction is one of the universal laws, right? There's like 6 or 7 universal laws. And I need to go review those podcast episodes because I have forgotten all 6 except for the law of attraction. You don't believe in the law of attraction, which is ridiculous because it's a universal law, et cetera, et cetera. When I tell you that after June, I was in a book club called Existential Kink. That was the book that we read. Highly recommend, by the way. Although I don't recommend it if you like, it's one of those books that's challenging if you're not ready for it, but it's good to tackle like your inner shadow. Anyway, um, so I was in a book club called Existential Kink, and during that time, I implemented a couple of like daily um meditation practices, journaling practices, how I like my self-talk and all of those things. I implemented them as daily practices. I had note cards for them, et cetera, right? When I tell you that shit works, this work works, the personal development work that I talk about all the time, using astrology as a personal development tool, that shit works, but it only works if you do your part, because you are what tells the universe how you want it to go. If you're still sitting in your stewy little childhood shit, if you're still sitting in your, my ex was such a hole and all of this and da 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 da, if you're still sitting in that, That's what you're telling the universe to keep feeding you, as opposed to gratitude and working on your chakras, working on your meditations, working on writing down how you want things to go, and then taking action every day to implement. This shit works when you work the work. So if you're wanting to trust the invisible, trust me when I tell you that it's not about trusting the invisible. It is about trusting that your actions are in integrity with what you want, how you want your life to move forward. So, okay. I like this eclipse chart. I think that it's going to add some flavor for sure, because Uranus is involved and we all know how Uranus can be. But I think it's going to be a fun eclipse. I do think there's going to be, I don't know though, nothing like bombshell like shocks me anymore. So I guess maybe that's why I say like there could be some shocking information, but here's kind of what I have concluded about shocking information. People already believe whatever narrative they want to believe. And most people are not going to shift or change the narrative that which they already believe. All right. Here is my controversial segment and why I think it's important with the solar eclipse in Leo and the lunar eclipse in Pisces. Ready? Lindsay Clancy. Okay, I normally do not get into these topics. I am not a true crime expert. I am definitely not. I avoid watching any like CSI stuff. My family watches that stuff. I don't read a lot of true crime fiction. It's just not my jam. Okay, so the fact that I have watched parts of the testimony of this Lindsay Clancy trial, if you do not know what I'm talking about, give me a sec. But I have watched testimony from this trial. I am not here to say whether he did it or she did it, because who done it is irrelevant to the current court case. Let me make that very clear. The current court case is whether Lindsay Clancy is guilty of manslaughter or not guilty of criminal manslaughter based on clinical insanity. That's not the right term that they're using because it's Massachusetts and they use a different term, but clinical, like mental health or whatever. That's the current trial. It has nothing to do with who done it. She is on trial. He will not be on trial. At least not right now. That's not the trial that's happening right now. The one that's happening right now is whether she is guilty of manslaughter, premeditated manslaughter, or not guilty of premeditated manslaughter based on clinical insanity. Either way, she either goes to prison or she goes to a mental hospital for the rest of her life. Okay. Very similar to the Casey Anthony case, but I very vaguely remember the Casey Anthony case. Okay, so Lindsay Clancy, hold on. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I put my water bottle so far away. Okay, so what happened here? The trial started on July 27th, 2026, which was the day before the full moon in Aquarius, which was 2 weeks before the solar eclipse in Leo. And when I tell you that as soon as the solar eclipse in Leo happened is when I started hearing about it. It was all over social media, or at least my social media. It's all over my feed. Now, that could be my fault for manipulating my own algorithm. So what happened here? January 24th, 2023, Lindsay took the lives of her 3 children. Okay. Leading up to this, she was seeking psychiatric support for postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression. I am not someone who has given birth. I'm not a mom, so I do not know. Okay. What I will say is that I have talked to women who have given birth and who have done like postpartum peer support and whatnot, and they said that it can get very disturbing in your head. So that I believe, because as someone who has dealt with emotional instability, I have dealt with, you know, thoughts in my head that are not fun, that are not pleasant. And I have sought support over the years. I have not experienced them in a very long time, but I have experienced them in my lifetime. So I will not deny this woman may have been experiencing postpartum stuff. Now, her youngest child was 8 months old. Um, I'm also not a medical expert, not a lawyer, not any of those things, okay? But what I can tell you from having watched trial testimony is that I feel like she was psychiatrist shopping. She was also a labor and delivery nurse, so she knew a thing or two. Um, and so what got me to really pay attention to this case was when I heard people saying, like making fun of the astrology. And then I had to go watch the astrology videos. And this is when I got pissed because there were, first of all, let me just explain that astrology is not biased. Okay. It's also objective. So when I look at a chart, you'll hear me say, like, this could be good, this could be bad. Just depends on how your life is playing out, how your chart looks. This is why I don't do sun and rising sign horoscopes anymore, because I think they're pointless. Because even within the Scorpios that were losing it, one person wasn't losing it, but was kind of going through her own kind of, or her own flavor of life was kind of spinning her. Okay. So even the Scorpios that were going through it was different flavors of that. And unless you're actually an astrologer and can see the common denominator, the common thread, you probably wouldn't even notice it. So there were astrologers that were saying that she's a Leo. Lindsay Clancy is a Leo sun. There's no way that a Leo sun mother could have done this, but a Gemini father, as in her husband Patrick, could have done this. As an astrologer, this infuriates me that, first of all, we're drawing conclusions based off of a sun sign. No. So that pissed me off. And also, I sort of saw this coming, right? The delusion, the ethereal is coming apart in multiple ways as Neptune has moved into Aries. I'm seeing it in so many ways, but this infuriated me as an astrologer. So I had to go find somebody who was covering these people's charts, like fully objectively looking at their charts. And I did find someone. If you want to find them here on YouTube, True Crime Astrology. She is super cool. I actually have watched several of her videos since then. She's really thorough. But unfortunately, we do not have time of birth for either Lindsay or her husband, Patrick. So we can only do either a sun at the ascendant line or a 12 noon at the ascendant line. Now, there is a way to rectify charts. This personally didn't do that for Lindsay, did it for Patrick. I'm not versed on how to rectify a chart. It's a skill I need to work on. But anyway, but I can tell you without even a rising sign, yes, she has a moon in Leo. Or sorry, sun in Leo. She also has a moon in Aries, squaring Neptune in Capricorn. She also has Chiron in Cancer. She also has her sun making a T square with Mars in Taurus and Pluto in Scorpio. I don't need a time of birth to know that is not a sunshine and rainbows type of chart. It's a difficult chart. Um, I have known other people with moons in Aries, and unless they have like good outlets for their emotions, they literally can turn into the Tasmanian devil at the drop of a hat. It's actually wild because it seems like they don't even know that they're present to what they're doing and the chaos that they're causing. I'm not saying that that's what happened here. I'm saying that that's something I've seen with people with moon, with another person who has a moon in Aries. So, yes, her husband has a sun in Gemini. His moon is in Cancer. Um, I've barely looked at his chart. His Mercury, he has a Gemini stellium, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I'm not going to show you the charts because if you want to go look at the charts, go let her tell you all about the charts. The point is that when you look at a chart and you're only looking at the sun being in Leo, and there's no way that a Leo mother could have done this. You are not looking at the whole ass chart. That woman's Leo sun was T-squaring a power struggle between Scorpio and Taurus. Or, well, Pluto and Scorpio and Mars and Taurus. That moon in Aries was squaring Neptune. That's not clarity at all. Emotional clarity is not happening. Then you have Chiron in Cancer. Chiron in Cancer is an interesting one. I have had a few clients with Chiron in Cancer. That mommy wound is really interesting because it kind of depends on where it lands in their chart. But I've seen some people, I've had clients who are moms, and they're like, "Am I supposed to be a mom again? Am I supposed to have more children?" And she liked being a mom, but she didn't know. I've seen it Chiron and Cancer in male charts, in charts for men who are wanting their life partner to be a mommy to them, like a mommy figure, taking care of them and nurturing them and all of the things. I think that if you only and so what's happening is everyone's saying like he's a Gemini, he did it. She's a Leo. She could not have done it because she's a Leo sun. He could have done it because he's a Gemini. First of all, that means you're saying that all Leos are good. And they're also saying that all Geminis are bad. Not all Geminis are bad, and not all Leos are good. All I'm saying. Okay. Secondly, it doesn't matter what astrology tool you use. There is not a question currently in the court case whether or not it's Lindsay or Patrick. It's whether Lindsay is guilty of premeditated or not guilty because she was in clinical insanity and like wasn't in her right mind. Okay, that is the question. But I want to pull this out a little bit. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit because um this isn't about her. Was her situation mishandled by the medical industry that she consulted with? Yes, and it looks like she was shopping around for the right psychiatrist and was trying different medications in different like SSRIs and like psychotropics in a very short amount of time. She was trying different medications. That can be dangerous. Not that I'm a medical expert, but it just seems like if you're only trying it one or two times and it's not working, so you go to a different psychiatrist to try something else. Like, there's a lot to that. Anyway, the point is three babies are no longer with us. And my perspective on this is two things. Number one, if you are trying to say that she is innocent based on the fact that she was failed by her husband, the medical system, whatever, whatever, have you listened to any of the trial, the testimonies? Because I mean, I don't know. I've listened to some of the testimonies and I don't see that. Two, let's zoom this out even further. We're talking about a mom who took, did this to her children. This happens more frequently than any of us would like to acknowledge, unfortunately. And I am not talking about the in utero situations. I am talking about mothers who off their children in some of the craziest ways, whether they are in postpartum psychosis or not. Okay. So there are two things, and this is why this is so important. I'm going to pull this in just a second, but people are and this also goes back to the whole cradle configuration that we had in July that's going to repeat again in 2027. Because there's a couple of big, huge topics here on, remember I was just saying that because the nodes shifted, Now, what was quieter topics are now more all of us topics because this is a female, okay? But this is also 3 children. And now we're finding out just how many moms unalive their children, off their children. And people are fighting for her innocence. She is not innocent, no matter what. She is going to be going somewhere, whether it's a mental hospital or a prison. Okay, she's not innocent. And unless something like magically shifts in this trial in the next like days, I don't see it being him. I really don't, because I've watched a lot of the testimony. I just don't see that happening. But the larger picture here is, why are we not fighting for the children? And then you have to ask yourself, if you're unwilling to fight for these children, why haven't they addressed the Epstein files? Oh, because we can't fathom the idea that a female celebrity or a female public figure would do this to children. Because we can't even fathom that this mother, who is one of many mothers who has offed her children this year alone, we can't imagine that a public figure would harm children. We cannot imagine women would harm children. And this is why the Epstein files are not being addressed. Secondly, also let me point out that her attorney, Lindsay Clancy's attorney, is a 75-year-old man. He's apparently a well-accomplished attorney, and I think he's doing a good job, just from what I heard. And I'm not a legal expert. I don't know. Okay, but apparently he's a goat in the legal system. Okay, he's 75 years old. He's Pluto Leo. Okay, what have I been talking about with these Pluto Leo folks? Okay, he's also a man. The key witness that has not, as of my recording this, their star witness has not presented yet. He's supposed to testify tomorrow. We'll see if that happens. Is an 85-year-old man who testified in the Casey Anthony case, but 85, which could actually put him as a Pluto Cancer. I don't know. Maybe pushing it. End of Cancer, early Leo. If you really pull this out a little bit, do you see what this is doing to women? Like, this is the patriarch's last hurrah. This is the patriarch saying, no, women are crazy. That's why they can't be in leadership. That's why because they're all clinically insane, because they all suffer from postpartum this and postpartum that and perimenopause this and postmenopause that. We have insanity issues. And if this goes down as her, I'm sorry, but we will be taking 1,000 steps backward that feminism, and I'm not even a feminist, but feminism tried to get us ahead of the game. We will be taking a quantum leap back in time, because now it'll be that much easier for women to be considered insane, psychological, cray, however you want to call it. So be careful how you're viewing this trial, because this is an older man, Pluto Leo generation. This might be one of his last cases to defend. And if you really look at this, and people have broken down like the symbolic meaning of Patrick and the symbolic meaning of Lindsay, and like Patrick's the patriarch and Lindsay is like the feminine or whatever. And right now, the way women are reacting and trying to say Patrick did it, there's no way a mother could kill her children. This happens frequently. And you can't always say that it was because she was mentally unstable, because I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. I'm not that dumb. What I really think is she was a really intelligent woman. She knew how to work the system because she was an L&D nurse, labor and delivery nurse. And when you have a medical professional become a patient, they know exactly how to work the system. So I'll leave it at that. I think you understand my opinion based on that. All I'm saying is that we really need to look at because, and you had this trial started at the Aquarius full moon. Um, the nodes had just moved into Aquarius Leo that full moon. And then it really became a hot, big issue around the solar eclipse in Leo. And the closing arguments for the trial are to be right around the Pisces lunar eclipse. I think people really need to be careful about what they are supporting because this is a bigger issue than just Lindsay Clancy and Patrick Clancy. This is more about how we view women. If you're constantly blaming men and looking for the men to be, am I saying he was perfect? No. But I think that he did do quite a bit. He did take paternity leave for every childbirth of their three children. He did start working from home because Lindsay was experiencing anxiety. He did get a nanny in the home. He did have a savings in case Lindsay chose not to or could not return to her job. He was trying. Was he perfect? No. Nobody's perfect. What I'm asking you to look at is the fact that every time, and did the medical system fail her? Maybe. I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm saying that there's two sides to every story because did the medical system fail her or did she know how to manipulate the medical system because she's in the medical system? Because that's always a possibility. What floors me about this whole thing, though, is the fact that everybody wants people to, deal with the consequences on the Epstein, the accountability on the Epstein thing, but yet you can't even expect accountability in this situation here. So what if they do choose to hold people accountable from the Epstein thing and you find out it was like your favorite talk show host or like your favorite performer or your favorite singer or your favorite country music artist or your favorite author? Are you prepared for that? Because what's happening is with Neptune having moved into Aries and no longer in Pisces, is the mask is falling off. The people who you respect, you admire, and you think the world of are not who you think they are, and the masks are coming off. And no, and nobody wants, people don't want to see what's behind the mask. Like four mask movies just flew through my head. Like I literally saw the Scream mask, the mask from the Jim Carrey movie. There was what the hockey. Um, anyway, it was just kind of funny because I said the masks are coming off, and like all three of these images flew through my head. Anyway, why this is important is because the South node's in Leo and the North node's in Aquarius. What used to be a Delulu issue is now a everybody's problem type of issue because we all have to face the fact that people aren't who we thought they were or who we want to believe that they are. Okay. Also, I've seen multiple people on spiritual stuff, astrologers, just completely losing their shit right now. So I'm not oblivious to that either. I know a lot of astrologers who are going through it. I know a lot of metaphysical teachers who are going through it, and it's pretty obvious to me, like, people didn't do their inner work. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect because I'm definitely not, but there's a reason why people are falling apart right now. And a lot of it has to do with grifting. A lot of it has to do with sympathy farming. A lot of it has to do with playing on your emotions. And for a lot of us, it's not working anymore. So think about the fact that if you really want bigger topics, bigger issues taken care of, and accountability and justice to be served. Unfortunately, that means that things have to be served to people that you think should not have justice be served to, because this could only be the beginning. I just think it's very interesting that this trial started and got really big around the Leo eclipse, and the closing arguments are going to be around the Pisces lunar eclipse. I think that's going to be a really interesting time frame to watch, how this goes. I think that some people have a grandiose idea that, her attorney's going to pull a rabbit out of his hat, and she's gonna get off. I don't think that's going to happen. I have seen no testimony of that nature, and the closing arguments are days away. So anyway, that's pretty controversial. It's the most controversial thing I've ever talked about, but I felt very opinionated about it. Um, I also really dislike the pop astrologers who sat there and pulled charts up and with no time of birth, and sat there and said that like it was him because he's a Gemini and has a Gemini stellium. Yeah, he does. He does have a Gemini stellium. He has a moon in Cancer. He's got I can't remember much about his chart. I looked more closely at her chart, and the whole like, she's a sun in Leo, and a mom who's a Leo couldn't have done this. Bullshit. Bullshit. And at the time that the incident occurred, January 24th, 2023, the nodes were in North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio. Neptune was in Pisces, and she's got a pretty foggy Moon Neptune relationship anyway. Of course, we don't know her time of birth, so we don't know the houses, so I don't know exactly where everything was. But Neptune at some point turned that Chiron in Cancer. And then the power struggle between Mars and Pluto with her son. Yeah, sure. A mom with a sun in Leo couldn't have done this, but a mom with a sun in Leo T-squaring her Mars and Pluto with a moon in Aries absolutely could have done it. Not saying he couldn't have done it. Geminis lead a double life. They can be two-faced. I'm not saying that that wasn't the case. I'm saying that what is being currently presented in the trial, that's not the case. So, anywho. And also just look at the fact that like if you really want these Epstein files to have accountability, you're gonna have to see people for not what you have always believed them to be. And I stand by the fact that I don't think most people are prepared for that. I have said that since 2020 when I learned about all of this shit. You can't just drop the bombshell on people that public figures are involved in this shit, because people are not prepared to hear that about the people that they admire, that they respect, that they pay ass tons of money to go see in concert or to go see perform or whatever, whatever, whatever. People are not prepared for that. But unfortunately, the masks are falling off now that we have Neptune in Aries. So, anywho, I hope that was helpful. I think that just kind of tied up like the whole um this trial happening and the shift that we are currently in the broad spectrum from the patriarch to the matriarch. I think that's really a really key thought that people ought to have about the Lindsay Clancy situation. Is how and why is this so public? It's because they're trying to prove women are too crazy to be in leadership, and they're trying to prove that women aren't mentally stable enough to be in politics, be leaders, be CEOs, be whatever. Like literally, if she gets an insanity thing, we go back milestones in female leadership. And then the other part of this to me is the whole like uh children and all of that stuff. Like we really need to think about who the real victims are here. Which is the children. So, and that, like I said, many moms off their children a lot. And I'm not just talking about the in utero situations, I'm talking about across the board. So tough topic. I know, controversial topic. I also know, but I think that as a female astrologer, it was really important that I talk about this whole thing and shed my light on it and let you know that just because somebody's a sun in Leo does not mean that they can't off their children, because yes, they most certainly can. And just because he's a sun in Gemini does not make him a bad guy. And I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm sure he was a dumbass. Okay, we all know if they got a penis attached. Okay, come on, girls. We all know that conversation. If you've never heard that before, I hope you just got a good laugh out of it, because it is a family joke in my family. There is a penis attached. Anyway, I'm not trying to diss on men. I am definitely not a man hater at all. It is literally a family joke about men. Anyway, I think men, they're very important. I think masculine men with with testosterone are very important, and we need to honor them and all of that. So, okay, anyway, I'm done. Have a good night. Happy lunar eclipse in Pisces, and I will see you on the next video. And let me know what you thought of this down in the comments. Take care.